This section, titled What Remains, considers how artists have dealt with ideas of loss, death, and destruction, and the way that they've used pre-existing materials and images of the human form to also reference ideas of connection and rebirth. At the center here is an amazing example of Cornelia Parker's suspended sculptures. Cornelia Parker is a UK-based artist who had her first US museum survey at the ICA in 2000. This work is titled Hanging Fire, Suspected Arson, and it's built from the charred remains of a building that burned to the ground. She collected all of these elements and put them together, strung them with string, and suspended them from the ceiling. And as you look closely at the material, you can see lots of nails and staples that are sticking out that used to be the building as it held together. She's also suspended it so that it's heavier and more dense at the bottom, and it seems to raise up, which gives the sculpture an amazing lightness. And I think it's an incredible combination of, on one hand, the kind of destruction and the loss that is part of the material's history, as well as the sense of it rising, or a kind of rebirth that she's given it through the way that she's displaying it. So along with Cornelia Parker's Hanging Fire, we have another prized work in the ICA's collection, Doris Salcedo's Atrabiliarios. Doris Salcedo is based in Bogota, Colombia, and a lot of her work has focused on histories of violence and conflict that are part of Colombia's history. To make the sculpture, Doris Salcedo collected the shoes of women who had been disappeared, presumed to be abducted and killed, during the conflict in Colombia in the 1980s. She encases these within the wall, kind of like a tomb, and covers over each shoe with a very thin, fragile skin. You can almost see the shoes through this kind of murky haze, which to me really reflects the ideas of loss and absence that are part of these stories. And if you look closely, each skin is literally sewn into the gallery wall, a kind of puncture and a suturing, an idea of both violence and repair that's such an important part of Doris Salcedo's work. In addition to the way that Cornelia Parker and Doris Salcedo used these found materials and collected them to create these very moving artworks, we also have two works that bring the human figure to the fore to think about these ideas. Behind me is Marlene Dumas' The Messengers. Marlene Dumas, who's a South African-born artist who's based in the Netherlands, had a major solo show at the ICA in 2001. And at the time of having her daughter, Helena, who's pictured in the final portrait here at the end, she began to really become kind of concerned and even obsessed with the potential of loss and the potential of death as she was experiencing the intensity of joy of motherhood. She made this series with a portrait of her daughter who stands upright, who has a strong gaze looking out, who looks healthy. And she pairs it with these paintings of three skeletons whose bodies seem unformed, who buried within them are motifs of birth and death. I think all of these works, as we're in the midst of the COVID-19 health pandemic and we're experiencing a loss of life and as well as the difficulty of seeing loved ones, all of these works are really marking the intensity of this emotional time and our experience of it together.